Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to English 4 AP Literature and Composition. My name is Alex Lyons. I'm your son or daughter's English teacher this year. I apologize for these headphones. The audio on my laptop is busted, and this thing has a little bit of a microphone, so the only way that your students can hear me in class every day and you can hear me now is for me to wear these large sort of like bad DJ Desert Storm headphones. So hopefully that's not distracting, and we'll just go about our business here. I'm going to put on screen share for a second so I can show you my PowerPoint here, and we can talk through the important pieces of the course. Okay, so this is just a quick background information about me. I actually graduated from LT in 2009. I currently teach AP Literature and Composition. I also teach the Freshman 1 prep class. I am the head girls cross-country coach, which I love doing. It's one of my favorite things. And also I'm an assistant girls track coach. If your son or daughter needs to get a hold of me, or if you need to get a hold of me, the email address is definitely the best way to do that. I check my email regularly. I will respond to you within 24 hours if you have any sort of concerns, but that's the best way to get in touch with me if there's something that you need. On a related note, I don't always do this like on the second slide of the presentation, but in the world of remote learning, I think it's critical for you and for your students to know how to get a hold of me if they need time for help outside of class. The mornings are the best times to do that because I have cross-country practice every day. So we have this nice block of time in the morning before your students begin class at 9, where I'm basically Tuesday through Friday, I'm available every morning to meet with them. So all they need to do is send me an email and we can schedule a time for a Zoom meeting and talk about an essay they're working on or any other specific concerns they have related to the course. We'll definitely talk about all the important reading and writing things that go on in AP4, but I think that every year, but particularly in the world of remote learning, I feel like no student's going to be able to learn anything unless they're in a room where they feel respected and treated like a person. We start the year by asking them to write us these letters of introduction. Your kids are unbelievable, right? The things that they're doing. I mean, there's people who are starting their own business. Somebody has an LLC. There were students that like have traveled all over the world, not so much in the last couple of months, but in previous non-pandemic affected times. And they're taking like 4, 5, 6 AP classes, and they're doing it remotely. So I want to be sure that they feel like I have an understanding of all the demands on their time, all the things that they are up against as young people in 2020. And I feel like if that's in place first, then it's really hard for them to have a bad experience in the class, right? Conversely, I think if we don't put that in place, then everything else we're kind of, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, so to speak. So we spend a lot of time, and I'll talk about this in a couple of slides, but making sure that there's like a human element to the class and that they have some flexibility and they sort of like feel appropriately accommodated while still being academically pushed. I think most of the class should be about kids doing stuff and not doing what I'm doing right now, which is just talking at you. Reading and writing are totally reciprocal processes, and I think we need to use feedback the right way. So if we do those things well, I think your kids are going to have a good experience. So here's the stuff that's in the course. My little box is covering writing tasks, so we'll move that. The course texts are along the left there. They should all have those. We made a couple of changes from last year, which I'm excited about. We added the namesake to the course, which is going to be interesting. And then along the right, you have the major writing tasks. So they'll do I would say a relatively diverse collection of writing in here. So they'll do the typical like analytical essay-based stuff that will be on the AP exam and exist in every English class. They'll also do some personal essay memoir writing. That unit comes very early and is designed for them if they want to use that as a time to work on their college essay, they can. We'll do the timed writing stuff that's necessary for the AP exam. And we'll also do some assignments that sort of braid genre, that have the narrative and the analytical put together. Partially because that's a really good way to stretch a student's thinking who's deep into her high school career, but also because the braided genres are the ones that exist most in the world and the ones that we'll see most in college. So the idea that like narrative writing is this separate boxcar from analytical writing or expository writing really isn't true. And that's something we want to make sure we address before they head off to college. Okay, remote learning and all its joys. When I started thinking about this, certainly we spent some time with the other AP teachers discussing what's the best way to structure the course. But the first thing we talked about is like, how do we make sure these kids feel like they're a part of a community in the classroom, that their teacher knows them, that they feel kind of understood and seen as people. So we tried to pump the course full with a little bit of extra human elements. I start the day every day on the little remote learning Zoom by reading them a poem. And occasionally it will have something to do with what we're doing in class, but very often it has nothing to do with it. And it's just a poem that I really like and I thought they would enjoy. I think there is some pedagogical benefit to sort of steeping them in as much poetry as possible. But also I feel like there's something, I don't know, like good for your soul about a person reading to you. So I try to pick poems that I think they would find engaging and that I like. And that usually kind of starts us off on a good foot. We use the breakout room feature a lot, which I'm sure you're going to hear about in other open house talks, but it's basically a way for students to work in small groups and I'm able to float around and jump into each group as necessary. It's also, for English specifically, the best way to address the problem of conferring. So I think the best way to teach writing is to sit next to a student and talk about a draft that they have under construction. And the best way to do that in a remote format is a breakout room, right? So we send students into breakout rooms of one. There's no one in there except them. And then I can just hop in and ask, discuss with them the specific area in their essay where they're stuck. They have a button where they can ask for help and it like signals me to join that breakout room. That's worked pretty well so far. Also, like, as a teacher, it's a little bit tougher to keep your finger on the pulse of the classroom remotely because you can't just like walk around and look at everybody's work, right? So what we've done is we've addressed this by increasing the number of what we call structure formative assignments. So there are more assignments that I am collecting and reading through deliberately as opposed to like, hey, students have this due tomorrow in class and we're going to discuss it. And I'm going to walk around and listen to your discussions. I think that works really well in an in-person classroom. And I think we have to be careful. I have to be careful to make sure I'm really aware of what each student is and is not understanding when the context is remote. And then the last thing is we've restructured the assignments a little bit to try and boost their confidence. I think they all know the AP Literature exam has a reputation for being really hard, that some of the books we read in this class are really hard. To the Lighthouse is the first book that we read in the class. It's like one of the hardest books I've ever read, right? It's a really tough place to start. And so we try and begin in a format this year that makes them feel like they're capable and they're going to be able to handle the material of the course. So an easy example is the multiple choice section of the AP Literature exam is really challenging. And often I would start years in past by like giving students a practice AP exam and just watching them get totally tuned up by this thing. And then, in April, we give them the same test as a practice and they would do really well. I don't really want to start this year by scaring them. So instead what we're doing is I'll give them an assignment where it's an AP passage from the multiple choice exam, but it's got all the answers marked for them. And instead what they have to do is go through and explain why this is the correct answer and why the other three options are incorrect. So it's giving them a feel for the exam, but on a level where they're capable to succeed right away. So they're going to get pushed, but we don't want to scare them off before we get off the ground. Grading policies. There's two categories in the gradebook. There's the formative category and there's the summative category. Formative category means this is something that we're doing early on or in the middle of a unit that is designed to prepare a kid for a graded task later. A formative task doesn't count. So if you see like 3 out of 10 in a formative assignment, that's just feedback for you and for your student that the student struggled on the assignment, but it doesn't affect their grade at all, right? Like you would never go to the DMV and be evaluated on your 5th day of driving a car. That doesn't make sense. You get evaluated when you've been, had time learning to drive and you're ready to go. So your summatives are what counts for grades. Those are the major assignments that we give students in the back half of each unit. If they struggle on formative assessments, so that would be your major essay, close reading, things like that, they are able to meet with me to discuss the issues that they have and then to resubmit and revise, and I will take the higher score. So formative does not affect your grade, but it's a signal of how you may do on the summative. Summative does affect your grade, and you can revise it if it doesn't go well. This is the last housekeeping thing I got to talk to you about. The deadline for AP exams for year-long courses, if you plan on taking the exam, is November 6th. So I would really encourage you to make sure that that's taken care of. Your students have all the information that they need to register. It's all on our Canvas page, including a common mistakes document for kids that have a hard time navigating the registration feature. If you have any questions, I've put Ms. Kalkowski's email address on there. She is incredible and is the one who's organizing all of the AP stuff for Lyons Township. Okay, I was anticipating this question because it usually gets asked at open house. Should your student take the AP exam? Specifically, should your student take the AP exam if he or she got a 5 or a 4 on the AP Lang and Comp exam last year? My answer would be yes, probably. It does depend on your university a little bit, but most places will accept credit for both. They just accept the credit differently. So if you got out of your Comp 101 class, for instance, by getting a 5 on the AP Lang exam as a junior, you can often get credit for an elective of some kind if you get a high score on the AP Literature exam. When I went to LT, I took AP Lang as a junior and AP Literature as a senior, and both of them counted for my college courses. So I wouldn't assume that because you did well on the previous exam that like you're not going to take this one or that it won't be useful to you. Obviously, it's going to depend on the university a little bit, but in general, I would default toward taking the exam. Okay, and the last thing is about the exam itself. I think essentially everything in the room that we do is test prep. I also think it's really important to call almost nothing test prep. All the experiences that are happening are going to improve your students' reading and writing skills in a way that will set them up to do well at the exam. Also, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, the AP test is evolving in its structure to try and punish classrooms that organize their year in a test prep format. So the more I think that we simply approach the exam as a thing that happens at the end of the course and that I am aware of and sort of marshaling our energies toward and making sure we're prepared, as opposed to telling the students every day, like, okay, today's multiple choice Monday or what have you, I think that can really undercut the meaning and the sort of sense of purpose that we get in the course. So it's something I'm going to think about all the time and make sure students are on a good track, but it's not something we're going to talk to them about super often because I mean, I feel like if we're doing this well and if this course is functioning as it should, they should end up being prepared for the AP exam, but that certainly should not be the most important takeaway of the course overall. Okay, that's everything I have for you. I hope this was useful. Thank you for taking a couple minutes to learn about AP literature, and please feel free to reach out if there's anything you need.